Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Yountville Town Council meeting for Tuesday, July 7th, 2015. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. And before we go to our roll call, I do want to recognize that the town of Yountville lost a very special, longtime member of our community, Bud Dolinsky, who passed away very recently. And so if you would please join all of the council in a moment of silence to remember Bud. Thank you very much. As I think most of you know, Bud was one of the very first members of the Yountville Town Council, and he and his wife, Barbara, lived here for many, many decades, and were instrumental in helping not only create but to build our community into what it is today. I also want to recognize the passing of a former council member. His wife, Councilmember Jerry Minor, lost his wife, Carolyn Minor, also very recently. And so we would also like to remember Jerry and his entire family and friends in this time of their grief. So moving ahead, please, if we could have roll call.
Councilmember Durham?
Here.
Councilmember Dornbecker?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hall?
Here.
Mayor Dunbar?
Here.
Councilmember Moeller?
Here.
Where did I go?
Kind of a clockwise
Kind of.
ish. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up is adoption of tonight's agenda. I don't believe we have any changes, so
Shall I do it this time?
yes, please use our fancy system here. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. A motion by Dornbecker, second by Moeller. All in favor, please.
Aye.
Verbally, we said yes, and we have no voting.
We do. I'm doing it manually.
Okay.
And
I'm pretty sure we're going to have a unanimous vote on this one.
I think so.
So we'll,
Switch it up.
I'll take the verbal vote as a unanimous adoption of the agenda. Moving on to our proclamation tonight. We are recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month. So I invite our Parks and Recreation Director, Samantha Holland, to join me at the podium. That's right.
Can we do it?
This is a proclamation designating July as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the town of Yountville. Whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of Yountville and the Napa Valley. Whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. Whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. Whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. Whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas the town of Yountville recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved that I, John F. Dunbar, Mayor, On behalf of the Yountville Town Council, do hereby proclaim the month of July as Parks and Recreation Month in the town of Yountville. Congratulations. Here we go. Since Samantha is normally our photo taker for these types of things, I think maybe we should go this way.
Need a selfie stick.
Wait a minute, how do we get this in?
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
No, that's not fun.
You want my iPad? Okay. That's cool.
I think that's a first.
I like that one better than mine.
That's going into the record.
Yeah, it's better than
Thank
one
you
I
very
took.
much for acknowledging Parks and Recreation Month, and I say it all the time, but I'm so proud to work here and love my job every day and my team and the people that we work with and for. And we have a great partnership with our Public Works Department here, who maintains and helps plan for our parks. So I get to claim this month, and Joe gets Public Works Week. So thanks again for acknowledging Parks and Recreation Month.
Our pleasure. Thank you. And please thank all of your staff and volunteers and everyone that brings it all together for our community.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
could, before we head further into the agenda, I'd like to make an acknowledgement and an introduction tonight. First, I'd like to acknowledge the recent retirement of Finance Director Kathleen Bradbury. Kathleen has retired after a career with 30 years in the public sector, most recently serving 6 years here as our Finance Director. So we wish her well in her next chapter. But also I'd like to introduce Richard Arrow, who is serving as our interim Finance Director. He had a distinguished career as the Auditor Controller with the County of Marin and has been helping numerous public agencies recently, including Katati and Ukiah, that may be a little more familiar for some of us in our geography as their interim Finance Director. So we welcome Richard.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I noticed you missed all the workshops that we just went through for our budget session, so nice timing.
Good timing is everything.
With that, I'm going to move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. As I think many of you know, this is the time when we welcome anyone to address the council on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. So if we have any members of our community that are here tonight to speak on something not on the agenda, please do so. Kim, welcome.
Hello, Kimberly Cook, 10 Redwood Drive. Council members and mayor, thank you for the opportunity for a few moments to speak to you tonight. On August 4th, you'll be asked to approve the ADA transition plan for the town. I'm here to represent many of my neighbors who strongly oppose the assumptions, directives, and wording of the 2 pages in the plan that refer to the Washington Park neighborhood. We disagree with the statements on page 73, stating that Washington Park is distinct from other areas of the town, such as the Old Town neighborhood where there are no formal sidewalks. We contend that it is exactly like Old Town, in that once you enter the Washington Park neighborhood, just as when you enter Old Town, it is clear that the cars park off the roadway, on the shoulders, in each neighborhood, in the same way. And the town's municipal code mentions nothing of a raised surface creating any different distinction. Page 74 specifically spells out the construction of vertical curbs along Forester to provide a network of accessible sidewalks in the neighborhood. We believe that to put such specific wording in the plan at this early stage in planning would create the necessity to spend the town's funds when the need for them has not yet been established. We believe that the decision to create sidewalks in the neighborhood is incorrect, and that a review of the ADA guide for small towns states that to achieve program accessibility, a small town need not make every existing facility accessible. And separately in that, nor does it mandate sidewalks. So changing the parking shoulders to sidewalks with vertical curbs will place cars into the narrow 24-foot roadway, which will in turn bring the width of the roadways to less than the 20-foot width required by CAL FIRE for access. It would replicate the problems seen in Yountville Square and create a difficult and dangerous situation in what is currently a well-functioning neighborhood. We ask that you please revise, remove, or postpone the specific changes in the ADA transition plan that are directed at the Washington Park neighborhood. which, by the way, has been a part of town for 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak on an item tonight? And Billy, also, if you could just make sure that microphone is facing you, I think it would, yes,
Not you.
correct.
Is this,
That's
is this
more
okay?
important. That's good, I
Can you
think.
hear me?
If it's not good, TJ will come out and fix it, but I think we're okay.
I just need to raise it.
That's even better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Billy Hewitt. I live at 9 Landy Way, next door to Kim. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you. And I too am talking about the plan for the ADA transition plan. And it seems like I've read the same thing so much, but I've never read it to the town council. In the circulation element that you adopted in April, there is a policy mentioned in there on C2.4, page 37. When it can be shown that construction of a sidewalk would be at odds with an existing neighborhood's aesthetic and the historic nature of the area, alternatives such as an off-street path or wider paved shoulders may be considered. And it talks about the history, and I too agree with Kim that we have been there for 25, it's been on the books for 25 years, although we haven't lived there. And if and when alternatives are planned, it should be presented to the neighborhood. So I'm asking for the opportunity to have some input into the plan, whether it would be a postponement or to have the plan before August 4th when you're asked to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, we're not able to comment on anything that's not on the agenda, but certainly you all are aware that there have been numerous neighborhood meetings already, and there are going to be more. So we'll just acknowledge that. Welcome, Steve.
Hello.
I bet you live next to Billy, too.
Yeah, I live next to Billy. And some of this has already been mentioned, but I wanted to read it in. My name is Steve Cook, and I live at 10 Redwood Drive. And Mr. Mayor, council members, and town staff, thank you for giving the time for us to speak tonight. I have a comment also pertaining to page 74 of the draft ADA transition plan. The draft states that, quote, the town will undertake a study to develop a workable plan for the future construction of a network of curbs and sidewalks. The proposed draft wording appears to stipulate that sidewalks will be constructed. It has not been demonstrated that a network of sidewalks is required or warranted. I request that that section of the draft be reworked to read, quote, working with the recently proposed Washington Park ADA Ad Hoc Committee or group, where we talked about that the other meeting, the town will develop a suitable development plan for the Washington Park neighborhood. The wording now makes it sound like they're planning curbs as opposed to planning a design that might include curbs and sidewalk. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And just so you'll note that staff is writing down comments, or writing down some of your comments so that there can be follow-up. Anyone else on any item? I had a feeling, Carla. Let me guess what you're going to talk about. I can't guess what you're going to
All
talk
I'm
about.
going to say is my name is Carla Reif, R-E-Y-F-F, and I support my neighbors in their, what they said to you, and that we hope we have a little bit more time to work on a committee together with the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, we'll move ahead from our public comment and move to our consent calendar. And we do have, I believe, 5 items on that consent calendar. And we will be noting, I'm actually going to pull item 5, or item E, because we do have some disclaimers. So let's vote on consent calendar items A, B, C, and D. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the consent calendars, items A, B, C, and D.
I'll second.
Okay. Are we going to do this verbally? Just, I guess we are.
Did you use your device?
I don't see any voting on our device, so
We did.
Okay.
let's see if it comes up now. While we're waiting,
It did. It motioned and seconded.
still not seeing anything, but I know there's a delay.
Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, now we have our voting. All right, please vote on items A, B, C, and D. The votes are in, and they pass unanimously. So the reason I pulled item 7E is because we do have some council members that we want to have verbal abstentions from meetings that were not present. So, Councilmember Durham?
Thank you. Just want to note that I will be abstaining from the March 17th, March 23rd, and March 27th vote for the minutes. Thank you.
The fact that you were not yet on the council makes that appropriate, I think.
Very much so.
Thank you. And I was also absent on the March 17th meeting, so I'll be abstaining from that vote. I believe there are no other disclaimers. So with those abstentions noted, is there a motion to approve the 4 minutes as presented?
Let's just do a verbal.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Vice Mayor Hall, seconded by Councilmember Dornbecker. All in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously with those abstentions noted. Okay, we will move on now to we have no presentations, so we'll go to our public hearing, a request for a use permit for Daba Food to Live By mobile food truck. Let's start with the staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar, members of the Town Council. The item before you this evening is for a use permit for Daba Food to Live By on Washington Street. The subject property is 1.13 acres. It's located on the east side of Washington Street on the site that is occupied by Ad Hoc and Addendum, the outdoor restaurant in the rear. The uses currently are served with a parking lot, 2 ADA compliant parking spots, and 29 regular and compact spaces. The site is served by a one-way driveway loop with the entrance on the south side and the exit on the north. There are sidewalks that connect the parking lot and buildings, and there is a public sidewalk along Washington Street. The proposal is to locate a mobile food vending truck owned by Walter Abrams, who's here this evening, who will operate the Daba Food to Live By, and it will be located in the southeast corner of the parking lot. And I didn't put this up. I should have done that. Okay, it's going to show. There we go. The property owner has provided a letter that states they are in agreement, providing the space to the applicant for the use when the restaurants are otherwise closed. The proposed hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The staff report says Thursdays, but the resolution is correct in saying Wednesdays. The menu consists of the flavors of India with a California twist, using tortilla wraps and rice bowls. Flavors will be a blend of curry, jerk, and blackened spices. The prices will range from $6 to $12 per entree. The customer would be able to pick up their food to go or eat it on site at the picnic tables that are normally used by Addendum at the times that they are open. Refuse service is provided by the applicant, and the trash will be removed to their operation in Napa for disposal at the end of each day of operation. No evidence of the use will be present when the truck is absent from the site. There will be no signage associated with the mobile food vending business. All advertising will be via social media and customer referrals. In addition, the food truck employees will not drive separately to the site, but will all come together in the truck. The restrooms at Addendum will be available for the employees as well as customers. The mobile food vending truck is licensed by Napa County Department of Health and carries both vehicle and commercial liability insurance. The Yountville Municipal Code states that the land use designation residential scaled commercial is intended to reinforce Washington Street as the main commercial street in Yountville and to ensure appropriate transitions to adjacent residential neighborhoods. All new commercial uses within the RSC zoning district require use permit approval, as do accessory uses that are subordinate and complementary to the primary use. The primary use of the property is the Ad Hoc restaurant with Addendum, and the proposed mobile food vending truck will be subordinate and complementary to that use by providing a food service option to those employed in Yountville as well as residents and visitors. The proposed use represents a food service opportunity not widely available in town, and this lower cost, quick option contributes to food diversity within the town. A taco truck has been operating at Poncha's successfully on the north end of Washington Street since 2009. Early on, there were a few complaints from neighbors concerning cooking food odors in cars, but staff has not received complaints for a number of years since some minor changes were made to this on-site. This site abuts the mobile home park to the east, and proposed location of the mobile food vending truck is approximately 200 feet from the nearest neighbor. The DABA operation includes the majority of the food preparation at their commercial kitchen in Napa. A small grill is included in the truck. The applicant states that they have not received any complaints about cooking odors, and patrons of the truck might smell slight garlic or ginger smells immediately adjacent to the truck when ordering. Given that the Poncha's food truck location is approximately the same distance from residents as those on the proposed project, staff does not believe noise or odors will have an impact on residents. However, as a mitigation measure, the staff asked the applicant to reduce his hours of operations from the 9:30 he originally proposed to 9 p.m., and he was agreeable. Staff recommends that the use be reviewed after 6 months to evaluate the actual effects of potential impacts, with authority to bring back the item before council for modification or revocation if significant impacts are identified. The shared arrangement for parking provides more than ample parking for the mobile food truck, as well as the patrons that will come to the site. Staff has suggested other conditions, including that the vehicle only be permitted to vend food from the private property, that it not be allowed to do so from the public right-of-way, that the applicant obtain a Yountville business license, and they pay the appropriate sales tax to the town. The applicant will also name the town of Yountville as an additional insured on its commercial liability insurance. The proposed project is consistent with the requirements of the use permit and RSC requirements, and staff recommends approval of the application by the town council. The applicant has agreed to all the conditions of approval and changes recommended by staff as part of this report, and previous conditions applied for the project. That I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions of the staff report? Well, I guess I should check and see if we have any speakers. We do. We have Vice Mayor Hall.
Thank you. Still learning the video game. Can you remind me what the hours are of the taco truck at Poncha's?
I know it's 11 a.m.
It's 11 to 9 or 8?
I think it might be till 9 o'clock, and I'm not 100% positive, but I think that's what it is.
So this is consistent with that?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's my only question, actually.
Any other questions? Seeing none. I do have a question as it relates to the alcohol permit for the site, for the restaurant. Is there a plan to serve any kind of beer, wine, alcohol from the truck? And if so, do they need their own permit?
Thank you. No, there's no plan for alcohol to be included.
Can alcohol be consumed if somebody brings their own on that site, or is that not allowed?
You guys always ask me these alcohol rules, and I'm not really up on those. I am not sure what ABC would allow.
That's something that I'd be interested in, because if the alcohol permit goes with, I'm assuming it goes with the business, which would be ad hoc. And if ad hoc is closed, so would the permit be?
I would guess so, because it has to be supervised by the employees of the restaurant. If there's no one there, then
so it needs to be made clear if people want to come here, if they can or cannot bring their own wine, their own beer, whatever it might be, and they can only consume beverages that are sold through this mobile vendor.
That would be my understanding. And I have to tell you now, I'm getting sensitive to some of these regulations as I've been here and processing applications. And I actually was at a limited service restaurant, not in Yountville, and was very much taken by a sign that was placed on the counter, which was, the alcohol must be consumed inside the premises, inside the building. You can't be taken out onto the patio because they didn't have line of sight. So I think, putting these kinds of conditions of approval, making sure we could have the applicant include some signage on the truck that says no alcohol can be consumed on site during operations. I think that would be a way to make sure people didn't bring a glass of wine or a beer onto the site.
I'll defer to our town attorney in case he has an opinion about this. Is it something you consider important enough that we would highlight if this is approved in the conditions? Or do we have something in here already that says basically they have to comply with any ABC regulations for the parcel?
I don't think there's anything in there from what I recall reviewing. This maybe just needs to be
You're
turned on?
You're on.
okay. I don't recall anything in the draft resolution that addresses this issue, and frankly, I don't know how ABC would enforce their rules during the hypothetical you're describing, where the business is closed and other people bringing alcohol on site. I just don't know the answer to that. If the council wants to make a policy determination to limit that use, that's fully within your authority to do so.
Okay, Steve, you have
And
a
I'm going
comment?
to say two things. One, the property owner representative is in the audience tonight, but putting my risk manager hat on, I would probably indicate that the property owner would not want to be liable or responsible or have his ABC license jeopardized potentially by misuse of the property. So I'm going to suggest to you that I do think it's probably important enough for us to add or suggest that you consider adding a condition in that would require signage that no alcohol is permitted. And I would ask the representative to speak if they concur with that. But I do think it's a smart and practical thing so that we don't put DABA or the TKRG group in jeopardy because of some unintended. If somebody really wants to drink with their fine food from DABA, they need to take it and go to one of our public parks where alcohol is permitted.
Okay, so that's just a heads up to whomever it is that's going to be presenting that you may want to address that issue. I believe those are all the questions of the report, so I'll open the public hearing and start with the applicant's presentation.
You can
Who's that
come
gonna
up and
be?
speak, maybe answer questions, or just introduce yourself.
Hi, how are you all?
Good.
Thanks for having us today. My name is Walter Abrams, and I am the chef and part owner of the food truck DABA, or the concept of DABA. This is Andy Mercy, my business partner. Happy to answer any questions. I did have a submitted presentation as far as all of our menu items and a little bit about the food and about myself. But if any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, you just heard us talk about one, and that is how do you plan on handling the fact that you don't have, I'm assuming you do not have your own independent ABC license.
That is correct.
And then you're hearing that we believe that you'll need to prohibit any alcohol on the property, and you may need to add signage to that effect to make sure that you're not jeopardizing your business or your host business.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I had a feeling you might say that, but I wanted to just hear you say that.
Absolutely.
Any questions of the applicant? Yes, Board Member Durham.
So how long have you guys been in business in the city? Because I see you're opening a restaurant in the city.
We are going to be opening a restaurant in San Francisco.
So you operate a food truck in the city as well as in Napa Valley?
We do not.
So
our first food truck and only food truck is in Napa Valley right now. And we've just started off by hosting a number of events in Napa, around the Bay Area. We did Bottle Rock. We're doing a concert series in Glen Ellen currently on the weekends.
And the reason I ask is because I checked your social media last night, and with your narrative, most of your business you're in the back corner of Ad Hoc, so you're not going to be easily seen by the street.
Correct.
And Yountville is not a town that likes business signs, A-frame signs, and I want you to succeed. I'm very excited about the menu. I just wanted to put out there about your following and because you are in the back of the parking lot, and the majority of people driving by are not going to be able to see you while you're there. And I just want to make sure that you're going to be successful, and we're going to see you in another month still.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, since we launched, our food truck part of the business, that's meant to start kind of launching our concept and share our wonderful food with the people, whether they're tourists or, workers here or the citizens of Yountville. But yeah, I mean, I feel like myself, who's lived in Yountville before and worked in Yountville for a long time, it's something that I would very easily gravitate to, and I know that there's a lot of people that are excited about us, being in the area. So right now it's not a concern of ours as far as how that's going to go. We feel that social media will be fine, and we're not planning on using any kind of signage.
Good. Thank you.
I guess I would just add that we hope the council would also spread the word.
Very good.
I think that big red elephant's going to help.
Yeah. Any other questions of our applicants?
I actually have one.
Yes, Vice
so
Mayor?
you say that the concept comes from, is it Avatars? Is that over in, it's not Larkspur, it's...
There is one in Larkspur.
They do have one.
It is in Larkspur, okay. So I'm familiar with
The
it.
original one's in Sausalito.
Okay, okay. That was my only question. I tried to know where I pictured the menu from, so, thank you.
So my question is more of a affirmation. There's no plan for additional tables, chairs in the parking lot. You're only using the existing picnic area back in the addendum area.
Correct.
Okay. And no table service. It's all
Correct.
traditional mobile vending, which is stand around and get your food and go sit down and eat it, or take it with you.
We do like to emphasize on a good customer experience, so if you go sit down, I'll bring your food to you.
I think as long as that is permissible in our conditions, and that's something I just want to give a heads up, and you don't have to answer it this second, but we're just very sensitive to when something like a mobile vendor turns into a limited service or full service restaurant. So
Absolutely.
as much as it means, to you to be a good customer server, we just need to make sure that that's something that's actually allowable to have happen. So
I would say probably not. We're pretty strict about our limited service restaurant. It has to be ordered, and picked up at a counter. I would say that it would be the same for this.
We'll keep it traditional.
sorry.
No problem.
I'm not really sorry, but I'm just clarifying. Sometimes even the obvious things may trigger something that you don't intend. So I kind of asked that question in a passive-aggressive way, knowing what the answer might be. But, okay, I think those are the questions that we have of you right now. Is there anybody else from your team that wants to speak or not? No? Yes? No?
Unless anybody has anything to say.
Okay, so you guys you're dismissed for now, I think. And we'll let David speak.
Dave Chebatari for the property owner. I'm just really here for any questions you may have. It's Thomas's goal, as it has been both nationally, internationally, to support chefs and all the rest. So we're here to support it. They have the skills, and from the business side, we're going to be helping them along the way. So we never intended the alcohol to be there. So once again, it's complex. It's our license. So, but we're there to help them.
So as long as we've brought that up to your attention and obviously to the applicant's attention, so it's clear, that was kind of the main point there.
Right. Correct.
Any other questions of the host of this, Vice Mayor?
Hi, thank you. So here's one food truck on Monday, Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Pardon me,
Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday. Strike that. Is there any expectation that in the future there might be additional food trucks that you would allow on the property?
I don't think that's the intent. I mean, we believe it's a one-off situation. The theory of ad hoc is really to stay family style, not go to 7 days a week. I'll never say never, but that way the staff is the same for all 5 days. Right. So it produced a unique opportunity, and the relationship with Thomas and Walter, it just kind of all came together. It's really on an interim basis, and so if another chef came along and asked Thomas to do it, I'm not saying he would say yes or he'd say no. I think it would be assessed, but this is not a new cottage industry for us. It's more a support thing, and I think both with the culinary allure to Yountville, it's an interesting concept to see how it goes, but it's not something we really want to do on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I'd like to comment, Vice Mayor, on yours. We want to make it really clear that the site that they're talking about at the ad hoc site with the current operating and their use permit, it does not permit for an extension on the number of days, because then they would be foregoing their principal activity, because they only meet the conditions that the town's ordinance has for a host on those 2 days. and I don't think they're probably prepared to close the restaurant and expand the truck. I'm just making that as an educated business guess.
Right.
A follow-up question. So, but I think maybe my question was misinterpreted.
Okay.
There could be multiple trucks on the same 2 days.
No.
Okay.
Each truck
So
would
we
have to come back for an individual use
Understood.
permit
So
and meet those requirements.
So that's the thrust of my question. It's not your expectation. that
No,
would
we
have
don't
multiple
see, the roundup of all the stagecoaches around the parking lot.
It happens in other agencies.
It happens in Los
municipalities.
Angeles and a bunch of other places, I agree. but
Happens
that's-
just south of here.
That's not that's not the intent.
I understood. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, fair question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
And you as the representative of the host, you're aware that you need to supply the restroom facilities
Correct.
for that business?
Restroom, and we're going to aid with the trash, everything else, so, right.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
David. Anyone else like to speak about this item tonight? You've all come here. No?
When did they open?
Okay, Billy. We have a process here. Seeing no other public testimony, I'll close the public hearing and invite the council's deliberation. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Hit your speaker button or forever wish you had.
Well, I'll go ahead and speak. So,
Yes. I assume that Councilmember Moeller.
surprise. Regarding the no alcohol permitted, I'm just kind of wondering, are we thinking about like a sign? We don't want an A-frame sign, of course. Hang it in the entryway to the picnic tables, or is the word of the ad hoc management sufficient? According with the food truck, they can't even sell it, or...
Well, I would propose that we add a condition, I think it would be 13 or in whatever order we need to, that would clarify that no alcohol sales or consumption is allowed on site, and appropriate signage could be determined between the applicant and staff.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that, too, so just...
I hope somebody
So
wrote that
no
down.
alcohol during the hours of their business, because ad hoc is closed, addendum is closed, that's why you guys are there, so...
Right.
So tie it to their specific business.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Dornbecker, I'm sorry, was that it for right now?
I'm very excited. I like our taco truck, so I'm even more excited now that we have two. I think this is a great concept, and I'm anxious to see that big red elephant driving down the street sometime soon. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Dornbecker?
I want to welcome you and wish you well. I think that it's a welcome addition to the menu of our town, and I like the price points for our residents. Sometimes our residents feel like they're priced out of eating in our own town, except for the taco truck and possibly Pacific Blues. But anyway, welcome. I'm looking forward to it, and I think that you'll do well. You know, the Golden Gate National Parks also host a bunch of food trucks. And, you know, if it's good for the Golden Gate National Parks, it's certainly good for our town. I think that you'll do well, and I wish you well.
Any other comments from council? Seeing no other speakers, I'll just mention that I have a history of being very sensitive to anything that's going to impact our restaurants in Yountville, and I know that there are much higher standards that brick and mortar restaurants have to go achieve in terms of design qualifications and other structural issues. So I've been rather sensitive and almost resistant to allowing the mobile vending influence to come to Yountville. It has been successful and well received by our community up at the north end of town with the other mobile vendor, and I have great confidence not only in your reputations and your work ethic, but also the reputation that your host has on the line to bring you on property, and for that confidence to be there is certainly satisfying. My main concern was going to be impacts on the nearby residents with odor, noise, light, those types of things. I certainly think ending, even though it's only 30 minutes earlier, I think ending at 9 o'clock is a better answer to mitigate some of those concerns. And also, we have had very few, if any, recent concerns about those issues that did pop up originally with our other mobile vendor. So, but there is a 6-month review to make sure that we aren't having unintended consequences. But with all that said, I think this is an exciting new opportunity for Yountville, and we'll welcome you. I think we kind of know where this is headed, but it'll be interesting to see what comes of this business, and it is an exciting new opportunity. So I'll be able to support this. If there's no other discussion, is there, I think I see a motion has been made.
Yes, I've made a motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
read the motion. I move that we approve resolution number 15-3273 and approve the use permit to locate mobile food vending truck Daba Food to Live By on private property located at 6476 Washington Street Ad Hoc Restaurant, with the provision that about having a sign that says alcohol is not allowed to be served or consumed at that time on that property.
Can I make a substitute to that?
Hold on just a second. Michelle, did you get the language that I proposed
I do.
about that? And would that be acceptable?
That would be fine.
To your motion?
So do you want me to read that?
Let's do to confirm that.
Add condition of approval number 13 to clarify no alcohol sales or consumption is allowed on site, and appropriate signage can be determined by staff.
During hours of operation of DABA. Because otherwise, we'd be blocking somebody else's.
Well, I think this condition goes to this application and the
use.
permit, so it's explicit that it's only about this
Yes.
use.
It's true, but it doesn't matter. You can clarify it. It doesn't hurt either way.
If we want to say, I think it's redundant, but if the motion and seconder want to have that language in there, Councilmember Dornbecker.
I think that's redundant. It's this use permit only, so I don't think it's necessary.
So your motion stands as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Got to hit your button.
I did.
You did. Where is it? All right, there we go. Seconded by Vice Mayor. With any further discussion, was there a substitute motion, Councilmember Moeller, that you wanted to still present?
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, please vote. There's much more drama with this now. And a unanimous 5-0 vote to accept the permit request with the one condition added. So congratulations, and all the best to you.
Oh, don't take it off the screen yet. He wants to get a picture.
It only stays up there for 10 seconds.
Cheers.
Or behind you.
Oh, did you get it?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you all very much.
It's online. Screenshot it online. You can go back and watch the video tomorrow later. Okay, you're welcome.
Who's our audience?
Yeah, there goes. No, we have many more online that are watching and listening. We're going to move ahead to our administrative regular item, introduction and waiving of the reading regarding vacant storefront window display regulations.
Thank you, Mayor Dunbar, members of the Town Council. On April 21st, we brought an item before your council discussing, as a discussion item, about proposed regulations of vacant storefront windows. And as you know, we have a few here in town, not a great number, but they detract from the commercial viability of the town and damage the neighborhoods, if you will, in terms of adjacent uses. In addition, we have a very limited amount of retail space within the community as we're near build-out, and we admire and respect the agriculture preservation of Napa County. Therefore, making sure that our commercial spaces are rented is very important to the economic health of Yountville and to the surrounding store owners as well. During the discussion on April 21st, the council had a very lengthy and robust discussion about this item, and we have listened to all the concerns and suggestions that you made during that time. We've included windows that are in courtyards, which was not originally in the proposed ordinance, and that has been added to the proposed ordinance that you have before you this evening, as well as a 6-month refresher. So each 6 months, the windings would have to be changed, and we would have a new review, so that would provide some visual vibrancy in each of the storefronts. There are 3 different options: faux window dressings that include goods or services with visual characteristics of a vibrant business can be included in the windows. Works of art, window paintings, and then other measures consistent with these examples would be allowed. So with that, we're asking that you introduce the ordinance this evening, and it will come back for a second reading. And as we discussed, there's going to be a fee attached to this, and that will be on a future agenda. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions about the staff report?
One quick
Councilmember
question.
Durham?
I wasn't here for the original discussion. So the property at Edward James Plaza, that's on the street that used to be the art studio, does that qualify as window? Does that qualify under this, or would it need to be redone?
In Edward James Court, you mean on the interior?
On the exterior?
On the
that's on Washington Street,
Right.
next to Bouchon.
Right, yes, no, it would apply there.
Does the current...
It's after 90 days of vacancy, so that property owners have 90 days before they come in to apply. That one obviously has been longer than that, but they're also actively pulling their permits now to do their remodeling.
Okay.
So...
but that window, as it's currently dressed,
It would
does
not- it would not comply.
Does not comply.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm
Very
sorry.
good. Thank you. That's all right.
Okay.
No, I appreciate the
Okay.
comments. Thank you.
And to clarify also, that would be a similar situation if there was a business inside that courtyard, they would also have to comply with this ordinance.
Correct.
It's not just street frontage.
Correct.
sites.
Originally, when we proposed it was street frontage, and the council wanted that to be expanded. So there are some windows in that plaza that would also have to be addressed as well. It wouldn't have been on the original one that we proposed to you, and you've expanded it somewhat to courtyards.
And if I remember, the conversation also had to do with a unique situation in Washington Square that
Correct.
has multiple access points as well as multiple windows on multiple sides, some courtyards, some parking lots, some street side. So
Right. They all
those
need to be
conditions are
addressed.
now consistent that they would have
Correct.
to comply.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would say this is also meant to be a tool, and what we're really looking at is our first and longstanding preference would be that the landlords come up with an appropriate market scalable opportunity to rent the space. That's our first preference, easiest for everybody. But unfortunately, we have several situations that are now really exceeding, in all 3 of the locations, well over 6 months, and in some cases, well over a year. So it leaves us to question, because obviously the private sector has not chosen to address that. So that's the first, if somebody wants to know how they can comply and not have to avoid this, it's rent the space. But a simpler question, Councilmember Durham, is the clock will start, the 90-day new clock, unfortunately, will start with the adoption of the ordinance effective date. We're not able to go back retroactively. We have had some outreach to a few of the property owners to let them know that this is under discussion, and apparently not a lot of concern on their part about the proposed ordinance, so there will be some education and outreach. And I guess the feeling that we have is at least a more proactive fill-in, if you will be more visually exciting, because some of these locations, they just haven't done anything. You make indication of the one there on Washington, which is probably better than the others, but it's still lacking, and frankly, it hasn't been freshened in several years or several months.
Just to be clear, the effective date here says the ordinance will take effect 30 days after passage, not 90, so 30 days.
Right, I'm referring to the 90-day clock.
The 90-day clock
ordinance.
starts.
Got it.
So it'll actually be 4 months before we can go in and do.
So we will be working with all of the property owners to see if it's possible that they may be able to avoid having to comply with this by having those spaces productively programmed.
Right, okay. And next up, Councilmember Mueller.
So Do we need to specify in here that it applies to second floor commercial space too? Do you want that clarity to make your job easier, or is it pretty much implied that commercial space is commercial space?
The ordinance actually only requires ground floor windows be treated.
Oh, only
Upstairs
ground
windows
floor,
do
okay, I
not
didn't
need
see
to be
that.
treated.
Is it called out as ground floor only?
Yes.
It is, and to the council's, one of the things we looked at in terms of trying to find that mechanism, because remember, this is a two-pronged mechanism.
Right.
The upper floor is primarily office, and we don't have the issue of vacant storefronts so that it's not looking like it's an active retail component.
Okay.
So that's unfortunately the trigger mechanism, although I will point out that it may not be widely known, but the office space at Washington Square is currently rented, although how long-term that is questionable. So we do have a shortage of office space continuing in town.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope.
Vice Mayor?
My question is not dissimilar, because the only second floor that comes to mind that would be visible would be in the Vintage Marketplace. Did we already bring this up?
V Marketplace?
V Marketplace? If there was a vacant storefront in there, how would that be treated?
If it's upstairs,
Yep.
it's not covered under this ordinance, just because it's not so visible from the ground floor that it appears to be vacant.
Yep, this is and again, I will also have to say, generally, we have not had an issue with that property owner having long-term vacancies.
But we don't write an ordinance because we do or don't have an issue with an individual.
Right. The point to the concern that we're addressing here is, this is a slightly different model, and I think it's worthy of a little conversation. The Marketplace and the design is a larger retail component within itself. So we are not able to, this ordinance does not go in and regulate the internal of V, and again, it goes to your goal of creating a vibrant, attractive street front, hence focus on the ground level, the storefront window displays, because on the ground level, there's very little, when you go into V Marketplace, there isn't a lot of a window space that's not programmed in proximity. So I do think we need to understand that the component and what we're looking at it. We would have to look at something, I think, unfortunately different if the retail space inside that property wasn't active. This would not be the appropriate tool to help us activate that. We would have to continue to work on a tool. This is really designed around the store frontage, ground level, where we have windows and storefronts and the traditional.
Exterior to buildings, yeah.
But we just indicated that if it was interior to, say, Edward Beard Plaza,
right,
that it would, in theory, have the same requirements that this ordinance is putting forward. So I'm trying to understand the difference between that particular parcel and the interior of the V Marketplace, and if we had a vacant storefront on the second floor.
It's exterior versus interior, I think is what you're talking
Is the
about.
V Marketplace open to the public during off hours? Can people just wander in?
No.
So one of the justifications for the ordinance is aesthetics and public safety. And those issues are, traditionally with these types of ordinances, the idea is that you're trying to prevent drawing attention to an empty building that might be a target for vandalism or crime or something. That's one aspect of it. Aesthetics is another one. And those concerns are heightened when the public right-of-way can see, as you can in a courtyard. You could walk by the courtyard and kind of see the empty spots. In the V Marketplace, that's much diminished, especially if during off hours they're closed to the public. So that's part of the reason it might be different in the V Marketplace. Could we extend the ordinance to the V Marketplace? I think possibly we could if you really wanted to, but there is a meaningful distinction between that interior space and a courtyard, which is open to the public to some extent at all times. You can't really close it off.
Okay? Answers my question.
Okay. I think the only spot that comes to mind that could fall outside of our intent here would be in the Whistle Stop area, where you have, if you're talking about just along Washington Street being streetscape and visibility, but you do have businesses that are visible from Private Drive.
No, it applies to everything that's in a courtyard. So,
Yeah.
you know, the
This
interior
would-
part
yep.
of the Whistle Stop
Okay.
Center, it applies to. It didn't in our original proposal, but when
Okay.
the council expanded it to courtyards, any place that's open to the public that can walk through in the
Okay.
evenings.
Yeah,
And
so I
that
think
would be open.
to Mike's point, that would be covered also
Right.
for the same reason.
A
Okay.
good
that's
separation is, if
I'm
you're
good.
familiar with V Marketplace, you have a primary shopping center entry door on the east and the west and one off the side. You don't actually enter any of the individual retail components from the, you have to come into the shopping center, if you think about it as a, and then they've divided the space within.
Right.
It's just set
Okay.
up differently, and
Yeah, I think we have that clarification now. Councilmember Mueller, did you have any further? You're still on the speaker list. Councilmember Dornbecker?
Thank you. So my assessment of this is that it's really to motivate some of these property owners and business owners to rent the space. Is that correct?
I would say it's an encouragement tool, and if they're not going to,
Yes.
that we want to make the area look more attractive, so yes.
I've already said in our first discussion about this that, you know, when First Street in downtown Napa had so many empty storefronts, they had all kinds of art and everything, they still looked like empty storefronts. Nonetheless, I think that as a tool, and obviously even the representative from Thomas Keller's company didn't stay to address this, but since they don't feel that it's a problem, I can support this, plus the fees, because I want to, you know, give them as much pressure as possible to rent those spaces. Absolutely.
And Councilmember Dornbecker, I just want to clarify, this is different than, Napa didn't have any regulations. And one of the things that I think is different about this one is you can't just put artwork in a window and then just leave it open so you can see the back behind there. You have to put some kind of screening to block off the back part so it doesn't look as empty. What they did there was not to any city regulations, it was just that they got some of the property owners to agree to put some pieces of art in the building, but you could still see all the way to the back that it was empty. So you're right, it didn't really do a whole lot. This, I think, is a lot better because it does have to cover that window and you can't look inside and absolutely know it's vacant.
Okay.
Any other speakers? Seeing none on here and no members of the public present, so we'll offer discussion and possible action on the introduction of this ordinance. I see that there's been a motion.
I will make
Is
a
it-
motion if you'd like to have one.
Yes, Councilmember Mueller.
I'd like to introduce ordinance number 15-438 and waive the reading. An ordinance of the Town of Yountville adding section 17.176 titled Vacant Storefront Window Display Regulations to the Town of Yountville Municipal Code.
And is there a second on that motion?
I second.
So motion by Mueller, second by Dornbecker. Please cast your vote.
One of these votes won't be 5-0
Yes.
eventually.
Well, we could have had them stay and take a photo of that.
I know. It could have been theirs, I know.
It does pass unanimously, 5-0. So thank you. And thank you to staff for hearing the message that the council gave you last time. So appreciate making those changes. I think we did come up with a better ordinance in doing that. So let's move ahead to staff informational reports. I see that we have the first one listed, Community Center Repairs Status Report. Let's do it.
All right, so just checking in with you as we approach next week, which is the beginning of the closure of the Yountville Community Hall for repairs. The closure will take place starting the 13th and will reopen on August 7th. That does not include the main community center, library, front desk, gym. That will all remain open to the public and operate as usual. It's just the older side, the community hall. As you remember, we had some water damage that affected the floor and the walls, so we found that it was a lot easier to just do a full shutdown of that facility to make those repairs. So those will happen over that 3 weeks. They'll also, Helmer and Sons will also be back on site during that time completing the siding project. So the full community hall exterior has been re-sided. The community center, the newer building, has about a wall and a half done. So they'll complete that during that timeline as well. And then we also have a few other smaller projects hanging out there, which include the replacement of the tiles on the plaza, the glass tiles, as well as some of the transitional pavers in the driveway that have come loose or rocky. So that'll all happen, and we anticipate, even with punch list items, having this project completed by mid-September. So another press release will go out in the Sun this week. We did send one out probably about 2 months ago, but reminding the community that there'll be a lot of stuff taking place in the community hall, but that the community center is still open and operational. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions about that update?
I have just one.
Vice Mayor?
Will you still have your office in the?
Yes. So I have an exterior door out of my office, and then it's convenient because Lisa will be off for 2 weeks on vacation, and so her office would be affected as well, but I'll be able to get in and out.
And so the founder's room, the conference room that's there, will also be closed?
It will be closed,
Okay.
yes, and the main community center
Okay.
will be open.
Thank you for that update.
Absolutely.
Water conservation update.
It's coming.
Here it comes.
Oh, you have visuals.
Of course. Tonight we discussed during our May meeting, one of the requests was that we would come back and give you an update on our conservation and the efforts that we're leading to conserving water. So tonight, I'm happy to report that, oh man, I can't work the machine.
Didn't we just get all of the Public Works tablets?
Yeah. That's,
okay.
That has way too many buttons.
Just checking.
Thank you, Michelle. So May, we were about a week or two into that month before we actually were able to implement the full conservation measures. And as you can see, in June, when we had the full month, we are 33% savings, somewhere around 20 acre feet of water. Just a little bit shy of that, or a little bit more than that. So happy to report that at this time, we're about 12.29% to the good in savings. So we're heading in the right direction. Just looking at our numbers and kind of the direction we're heading, we would anticipate that those kind of similar numbers are going to be reported in the next couple of months as well. But we'll continue to do this update every month when the numbers become available so that we can keep track of it and keep you guys apprised of what's going on.
Great, thank you. I think we have Councilmember Moeller. Question.
So have you had conversations with the Veterans Home? Because I'm sure they have fixed costs to run their water system. And let's say we hit the magic number of 25% by the end of the year for an average of 20% for during the year. Will even what we conserve be enough to cover their fixed costs? And the reason I'm asking is because we are reading about in the paper all over the place about towns that have these fixed costs to run their water systems, and with all the conservation, they're not meeting that, so they're going to have to raise the rates. Do you have any information regarding that?
I don't have any information regarding that.
If I could, Councilmember Moeller, I think that's certainly a concern, but I also think a lot of that conversation has more to do with some of the operators that are more like us. And one of the things that I take a lot of pride in is our rate structure actually covers all of the fixed costs. So the only real variable component using our rate structure, everybody pays a fixed cost which covers the staffing, or what is necessary to maintain the pipeline and all that, and then the variable is on the consumption. And when you look at your bill, in some cases, for a lot of folks, the consumption component is actually less than the fixed cost, especially some of our more efficient water users. I think the challenge that we have with the Veterans Home is we are very similar, that we pay a proportionate share of the annualized costs. Right. So I am going to say that, yes.
That's what I was really referring to,
There is a fixed cost, but I would also say amongst the two users, and again, it's verified, so they have to provide all of that information much like we have a fixed cost, and if chemicals go up on the treatment side, we share all of that. So I'm going to share with you, if you may recall from our budget workshops, and I'll fill Jeff in, but that chart wasn't doing this, it was doing that. So I'm going to suggest to you that we probably will see an increase in the continued cost, but I don't know that it's going to be significant, because the Veterans Home over the past 3 years had completed some of their infrastructure improvements, and that's what led to some of that cost increase. But we'll have to monitor that, and we'll certainly report back to the council. But I do think you did read about, some of the cities that just have everything lumped into usage.
Right.
They are having a concern, because if the community reduces their usage by 30%, again, our usage component, if it drops, it only reflects what we're buying from the Veterans Home, and we're still capturing our fixed costs. So fundamentally, we're in a very stable situation with our water system and our revenue if people reduce.
Thanks. Councilmember Dornbecker, do you have a question at this point?
Yes, please. Joe, when we got this report several months ago, there was a breakdown between what was municipal savings and what was resident savings. Do you have those numbers? I can't actually
we
read
do
them.
have those numbers, but they were raw as of today, and we're trying to refine them. But
I see.
I can answer a few of the questions if you have something specific.
Well, I was wondering what the,
I will say our residential use is almost double what the commercial and other users are. So we're about 4,000, 5,000 acre feet roughly for our residential users, and the commercial users are somewhat less than that.
and you don't have an answer as to how much conservation has been taking place among the residential users?
Yeah, we're still trying to drill down into that, but we can. I'll have that for you on the next report.
Does it seem like there has been some?
The biggest drop is in the residential.
The biggest drop is in residential?
Yeah, it's clear that the biggest drop is in residential, but I can't give you an exact percentage, but that seems to be where the savings is at, because that's where the biggest use was at. So it makes sense that the biggest savings would be in the residential end. I will say that we also fixed some leaks, and there were some people that didn't realize they had leaks that then became aware of them, that we were also able to help identify and fix. So again, that's significant savings. Even a small leak that runs around the clock adds up a good bit. So those are helping these numbers as well.
And then I know that in the CIP plan, we do plan to put in smart water meters. When will that begin?
We're going to try doing that pretty quick. Some of our older, the meter reading system that we have now that we use to capture that information is actually a system where we have to drive around, and those batteries are reaching into their service life. So what we thought we would do was buy 50 or 60 of those meters or reading devices. Instead of replacing the battery, replace the device. That would allow us to test the system, see how it works with our financial software, and then we can get a better grasp on what that is. So we're trying to get pricing on that right now, and going to try to beta that system.
Good.
There's two other components that on a municipal side that we're monitoring and we have plans for, and some of that is, as you may recall, some additional landscape conversion as well as the full launch of the smart meter. We're also waiting for the state to release some of their programs, because we want to, if there's going to be some grant funding available to encourage some of these, we want to be able to receive our fair share. And if we go ahead too early on some of these that are likely to be funded, as we did with the recycled water project, we're going to watch a little bit longer into the fiscal year. But we do have money as we reach through the summer. We'll be tearing out some areas and replacing with drought-tolerant landscaping. We will be waiting till the fall start of the rainy season, just because putting plant material in now is the hardest for it to acclimate. And that's something that our park crews are working right now to develop on some of those periphery and small areas. And we also, Joe and some of the team went and toured some of the larger nurseries that specialize in a broader and more diverse plant stock material than are locally available. And then again, we have the budget, but again, if we're able to get a small grant for both the water meter replacement program and also the other element that we're really looking forward to launching is a smart irrigation control program, both for our own town facilities, but also a rebate program, so that these would be tied into what does the landscaping actually need, based on some sensors. So those are some things that we keep hearing, that there's going to be information forthcoming from the state on programs, and I think you'll see a lot of movement in the next 60 days on those, and then we'll have a better understanding where we may stand in our ability to get some money. And I do want to acknowledge the significant efforts of the City of Napa staff and their Water Conservation Department, because they are our extended staff under our approach for our Cash for Grass. And we actually are looking at launching it. We've just scribed another 10,000, so we're really going to be doing another outreach. And we've had some pretty good success, and I think, in the community from a number of folks that have participated in the Cash for Grass program. So we're doing some marketing on that. And we're also working with some of our commercial property owners, and that's why you do see some of the landscape strips along Washington starting to go fallow. They're communicating that, and then we're working with them on DG and or hardscape and some landscape plans. But I think you will see now that there's a little more brown in Yountville, so if it's terribly green, it probably is an indicator that the property owner may not be doing their fair share in helping in the drought.
Well, we've seen a significant bit of activity by the residents, so I would say that's the majority. I know the vice mayor has been waiting to ask a question.
I'm sorry.
Did you have additional questions?
My last question is, have we received many more complaints from residents about the program that we put out saying, please inform us if you see?
I'd like to clarify something. One, we need to make sure everybody understands the guidelines and requirements from the State Water Resource Board require that the town has an opportunity for people to report concerns. So what we've done is, some people in the community are monitoring that. We have people that are out on their typical morning walks, and they share when they see something. What I will also say is, town staff, when we observe certain things, we do not have what I would call an overtly aggressive program. For example, the city of Calistoga has 2 part-time water enforcement education people. We're doing this all on a citizen information and staff see only basis. So I want everybody to realize, I do know and I can appreciate from some of the folks that when they receive a door tag, even though we thought we tried to write it in the most friendly, this is a first phase, are you aware of this? Some people take that, and it's, but for the most part, most people are acknowledging that, and I think we just need to reinforce. We have some residents that believe it's their responsibility to share and report, and some of them do on a regular basis. But state law requires that we at least facilitate a process for people to report potential water misuse anonymously.
Well, have there been an increase in the number of people who've complained about it?
No. I would say we run 3 to 5 a week. That's not a large number.
Okay.
And
Joe,
I would also say that as many people as are unhappy with having this notice, there is an equal amount who are quite glad that we've let them know and they're able to fix the problem, or because they just don't know. I mean, the real issue is a lot of times they're not home, or they're just not aware, and if you help make them aware, they're really quite pleased.
I was just wondering about that one point.
Yep, I think that's a good point that Joe's making, and also some folks aren't aware of what their landscaper may or may not be doing. When you put all of that together, I think that is a good point. We kind of dwell sometimes on the negative calls, but there are some folks that have really taken the message for what it was intended as a please be aware and here's some educational help.
Yeah, thank you. Was there more to your update, Joe, or have we covered
No, I would just finish up by saying I think the mantra around my crew is brown is the new green. So I think that's what we're trying to adopt and get people to kind of realize. So that's kind of how we're living.
One other thing is that the town is going to be working with the Yountville Sun on publishing a little bit of a periodic. You've seen the first one go out in last week's paper, but we've got some water conservation hints, and also we'll be periodically showing monthly drop usage. So we've been working with Sharon Census to try to work on a different outreach for some of those folks that may not be on e-notifier or watching the council meeting tonight, so that they'll be able to be educated as to some things that they could and should be doing, and also where we are. Because the one thing I will put out there, well, I think you see some very good trend lines right now, that net overall number is not quite where the governor has asked us to get it. So we have some work yet to do, and I think we're very close, would be what I would say. There's some months we are certainly meeting that, and then there's some, but I'd also say, and we have to be cautious, the size of our water system means one sizable leak that goes uncaught for a period of time can really skew our consumption. Conversely, it also can skew our savings, because if we fix it, it's going to look like a big reduction when we're just getting it back to where it should have been. But that's why we have to be cautious. I think what you're seeing there, and I will echo what the mayor is saying, I think you're seeing generally that our residents and our businesses are acknowledging, and we're seeing some consistent and steady response to conservation.
Great.
I think the last thing is that we are planning on having that water conservation workshop. Details will come out pretty soon, and it's going to include some drought-tolerant landscaping suggestions from one of our landscape architects, and one of the irrigation controller people are going to come out and give some discussion about smart irrigation controllers, and our staff is going to support that in some way. So we'll broadcast that out on social media in a variety of methods and get the information out, but before the end of the summer for sure.
Very good. Thank you very much for all that. I'm going to just quickly give what I would consider a staff informational report. There was notification from Napa County Public Works that there is going to be road maintenance on Silverado Trail from July 13 through August 31st from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. And so this is just a heads up to all of our residents. There is going to be necessary road maintenance on the Silverado Trail during that time period, beginning from the Calistoga city limits south on Silverado Trail. There will be traffic control in effect at either end of the working section. And so expect delays of at least 15 minutes periodically throughout that time period. And so apparently, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Daily, from July 13th to the end of August. So apparently what they're expecting us all to do is drive through the channelization project on Highway 29, where there will be at least the same delays. So it's going to be an interesting summer on our roadways.
Especially with the Oakville Crossroads. Something
that we can bring up as we get to our NCTPA board meeting report. So moving ahead, let's have council meeting reports. I don't have a flood control. We haven't met, I don't believe, since the last time we all met. I do have a report from the Napa County Transportation and Planning Agency Board. We approved the 2015-16 budget, and also our transit manager, Tom Roberts, has announced his departure from the agency. Tom has been with us for several years and has done a fine job. One of the most significant impacts he's had recently was a major route change that has made, the effect of that has had a dramatic increase on ridership and on-time arrivals of the the transit system. So thank you to Tom Roberts. Moving down to Upper Valley Waste Management Authority, do we have any short report?
Yes, we met June 17th, and a couple things. There was, I've been talking about the big laundry list of possible capital improvement projects, and we formed a ad hoc committee with Yountville and Calistoga and our respective city and town managers to look at 3 possible consultants who can help us evaluate that list. Also, the company announced that probably this fall, Yountville would be kind of the guinea pig, if you will. They're gonna try to look at single stream composting. So what that means, right now in your green waste bin, you can only put leaves and grass and things like that. So we'll be able to put in everything that we normally put in our brown bin, such as eggshells and food waste and things like that. So all composting will go into one bin, and we'll see how well that goes in a small municipality like ours. What they'll be looking for is how many people are still throwing in paper cups and cardboard boxes or stuff like that. So if it works well in Yountville, they'll probably launch it with in the rest of the valley later. So stay tuned for more on that.
Thank you. Let's see. Napa County Agricultural Protection Advisory Committee. We did not, our meeting was delayed because of the holiday, so we'll be meeting next Monday. The two issues that will be addressed next, one is the issue of variances and how they're used, but also a proposal from from David Morrison, the Planning Commission Director, to use a criteria matrix to try to evaluate which winery parcel or which parcels are appropriate for wineries, and if so, how large and how much traffic and other impacts would be appropriate for those parcels. So those discussions are ongoing. I know that Councilmember Dornbecker, I believe, is going to be helping give a report on the mayors and council members leadership conference that we both attended down in Monterey. So if you wanted to start with that.
All right, thank you. So that was June 24th and 25th, and on those days I attended several different meetings. One was the meeting, the Sustainability Challenge, about that included a report on greenhouse gases. And what was interesting out of that was that right now the state produces under 460 metric tons of greenhouse gases, and the goal by 2020 is 435. So we have reduced greenhouse gases in the state, but we still have a ways to go. There have been fuel improvements for cars and trucks. The carbon intensity has decreased over 20% since the economic recovery. The utilities, there's now 3.2 less consumption in the state of electricity, and also the utilities are all implementing sustainable alternatives to the regular ways that we get electricity. Then I also attended a communication with residents, how to communicate early in the process, and building interest, which I'm relating to our Go Green team. I'm going to see this implemented so that we can build excitement about the Go Green team and about the ultimate outreach we will do to the community. There's a new sustainable groundwater management law that has gone into place, and the government, local government and state government needs to work together. That was very intense and deep. That particular sustainable groundwater management is something that I haven't gotten a handle on yet, but I'm learning. Then also, I went to a seminar on conducting effective council meetings and dealing with disruptions, of which we have very, very few. And then I went to a labor relations meeting and talked about OPEB and liability costs. And we are doing, I think, the best practices by having the trust, the non-revocable trust into which we are paying our OPEB. And thank you, Louis Chilton, for always pushing that. And then there was a presentation on how we should give more information to the community about our attendance at league meetings, and they gave us a sample press release that we could put out that says that, you know, Mayor Dunbar and I attended this. If we wanted to do that, I don't know if that's something that we want to do or not. But anyway, it was very, very interesting and a lot of information, and I took copious notes. and now I'm trying to decipher them. But otherwise, I really, it's a really valuable exercise for me.
Yeah, I agree. I found that communicating with residents an interesting mix of dynamics at play. One of the speakers was the Director of Marketing and Public Relations of Rancho Mirage. And his presentation, just to give you a little flavor, basically went along the lines of they are the number one, and I won't use the brand names, but high-end luxury car ownership capital of the world, basically is what he was saying. It's the highest in the U.S., I think, per capita high-end luxury vehicle ownership. And that drew some questions from the audience during the Q&A about how do we apply that to all of the rest of our communities. They have 3 separate websites that they use to promote the city. And the city, interestingly enough, is made up of small special districts throughout the entire city. And
Gated communities.
Yeah, there is no individual entity. They all somehow get along. So that was interesting. But I also wanted to recognize that the first day's keynote speaker has a direct relationship with Yountville, which we didn't realize. After the fact, some of us were speaking to John Nalbanian, who's a professor of public administration at the University of Kansas. And when I introduced myself as the mayor of Yountville, he said, "Yountville, Steve Rogers. Steve was a student of mine at Kansas." So Steve's reach continues to be far and wide. But John had very good things to say about our town manager, and it's just funny to see sometimes how small the world gets when you're in elected office and working for staff. So that was kind of a funny little side story. He gave a very interesting speech about political acceptability and just how to manage people's expectations. I mean, you can tell he's been a professor for a long time because he really knows how to speak to a large audience. But anyway, so that was that conference. I did I did want to acknowledge all of our town staff and the Vets Home staff for the fireworks display that we all enjoyed as yet another local community free benefit that the town puts on. So thanks to and all the Vets Home staff that puts on the entire day's activities of live music and food booths and everything else. So kudos to all of them. It was a beautiful night to enjoy Independence Day. So I want to give a chance for any other meetings that any council members have addressed or announcements. Are there any others? I'm just going to go back and make sure I don't have any others also. I think that does it for me. We do have 2 closed session items. Do we have those closed session items to deal with tonight? Mike? Are they both on the agenda as listed?
Yes.
Okay. So we will be adjourning to closed session. What I did want to do before we do that is invite a motion to adjourn in the memory of Bud Dolinsky.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn to our next meeting on July 21st, 2025, in Mr. Zielinski's honor. And thank him for his service to our town.
It's 2015.
2015, sorry, 21s.
Yes. Councilmember Dornbecker?
Well, I just wanted to let people know that on, Saturday, there will be a ceremony at the Pioneer Cemetery at 11 a.m. for Mr. Dolinsky, if people who are watching would like to join us there.
And I have noticed that has been listed in the Yountville Sun as well. I'm sure it'll be noted again this week. There's a motion. Is there a second for adjournment? Vice Mayor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So we'll go into, actually, we're not adjourning, we're going into closed session. Sorry about that. We'll go into closed session, but we just practiced our adjournment for all of you for later. And are we anticipating any reportable action coming out of closed session?
No, I don't believe so.
So we'll just move the recording of the adjournment.